Since the novel coronavirus that causes COVID-19 began sweeping the globe in early 2020, Haredi Jews, sometimes referred to as ultra-Orthodox Jews, have experienced illness and death at disproportionate rates. The first Israeli town to go into lockdown was the largely Haredi Bnei Brak, when health officials determined it had almost as many cases as Jerusalem, even though Jerusalem's population is 4 times its size. In April, New York City's Borough Park, one of the largest Orthodox communities in the world, had the most positive tests in Brooklyn. That was during the peak of the epidemic in New York, at that time the epicenter of the pandemic in the United States. Why have Haredi communities been hit harder by COVID-19 than others? And how have authority figures, both inside and outside the community, responded to the challenge? Even with the popularity of TV shows like Shtisel and Unorthodox, Haredi culture can seem monolithic to outsiders. In fact, it's very diverse. Some Haredim are Hasidic and follow single spiritual leaders who are often dynastically appointed. Others have their roots in a scholarly tradition derived from Lithuania. Those of Sephardic descent maintain unique customs that originated in the Iberian Peninsula and that they took with them when they migrated to North Africa, the Levant, and across Europe. Meanwhile, Mizrahi Haredim trace their lineage and traditions back to Georgia, Uzbekistan, Iraq, and other countries throughout the Middle East and Central Asia. While the majority of Haredim today live in the United States and Israel, there are also major communities in France, Belgium, Canada, Australia, and the United Kingdom. But despite the diversity in the Haredi world that outsiders often fail to see, experts believe a number of common sociocultural characteristics are responsible for the quick rise of coronavirus in Haredi communities globally. First, Haredim tend to have large families. Families often live in small apartments in dense urban environments. The Haredi lifestyle is also strongly communal. Men pray in quorums of 10 or more up to 3 times daily, and families frequently congregate in synagogues and neighbors' homes for holidays, Sabbath meals, and family celebrations. Some Haredim are just as technologically plugged in as the average 21st century person. They own smartphones, use Twitter and Instagram, and watch Netflix. There are prominent Haredi influencers, like Chani Apfelbaum, a popular Hasidic food blogger. Others are more conservative in their media consumption and may avoid watching television and limit their use of the internet. Posters printed with local news, called pashkavilim, and robocalls are common ways of disseminating information in more tight-knit communities. Owing in part to a history of persecution, some Haredim can also be distrustful of secular authorities, though they are not anti-Western medicine. The wariness of government authority, combined with often limited means of transmitting information, made it challenging to keep some Haredi groups up to date with the rapidly changing and sometimes contradictory safety protocols at the beginning of the pandemic. Poor timing probably played a role in the early wave of coronavirus among Haredim. The virus reached Israel and New York City in late February and early March, right before the holiday of Purim, when Jews of all denominations gathered together for services and celebrations. While many synagogues canceled their customary Purim celebrations, some did not, either because they downplayed or misunderstood the severity of the situation, or because in more insular communities, they simply didn't know about the increasingly strict guidelines. In the coming weeks, healthcare workers and funeral homes in these communities were overwhelmed by the number of COVID cases. As stories of illness mounted and several beloved rabbis succumbed to the virus, many inside and outside the Haredi world argued over how much to blame their community leaders, the rabbis, for failing to properly heed or broadcast guidelines. Some Haredi spokespeople told the press their rabbis encouraged adherence to the guidelines as soon as they were issued, learning on the fly like everyone else. But critics pointed to numerous documented incidents of rabbis stating that schools and synagogues should not be shut down despite the government's advice to the contrary. This is because in Orthodox Judaism, prayer and study are not only the foundations of the community, but also the foundations of divine protection. In a March 11th video, Rabbi Chaim Kanievsky, a revered figure in Israel's Lithuanian Haredi community, told his grandson that closing schools was more dangerous than keeping them open. Later, Rabbi Kanievsky changed his message and asked his followers to be as stringent as possible when socially distancing. Despite the efforts of many Haredim to observe guidelines, there were also a number of highly publicized incidents of Haredim disobeying government mandates to socially distance. While it was the exception, not the rule, footage of police in New York and Israel raiding packed synagogues and schools and breaking up large gatherings drew widespread condemnation from viewers who were angry at what they saw as mass defiance among Haredim. In Williamsburg, Brooklyn, home to a large population of Satmar Hasidim. Thousands congregated at a funeral for beloved Rabbi Chaim Mertz. The incident prompted Mayor Bill de Blasio to tweet a message chastising the Jewish community, which sparked outrage among the city's large, diverse Jewish population, who felt de Blasio was blaming all New York's Jews for the failure of a small group. It also raised concerns that Haredim were being over-policed and at risk of being scapegoated, which Jews have experienced during plagues throughout history. In Israel, where there is often tension between Haredim and the rest of society, a viral video of police officers rebuking a young Haredi girl for wearing her mask incorrectly incited a similar reaction. Whether or not some Haredim were slow to adapt to our new global norm, it's clear that just as many reacted quickly and creatively. Many of the rituals that would have normally been performed in large groups, like weekday prayer services, were done from balconies or rooftops. In the Hasidic village of New Square in upstate New York, prayers were blasted from a synagogue's loudspeaker so community members could pray from nearby homes or passing cars. Hotlines were set up so patients with poor prognoses could hear final prayers when family members weren't allowed inside hospitals. Traditionally huge Hasidic weddings were replaced with socially distant parades, like this one in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, home to Chabad Lubavitch Hasidim. In early April, families were told to have the Passover meal at home and not travel to see relatives or have guests over. When Bnei Brak was quarantined, Haredi Mayor Avraham Rubinstein solicited the Israeli military for help. This was an unprecedented move, considering the long-standing tensions between the IDF and Haredim. IDF soldiers helped deliver food to quarantine residents and set up testing centers, while entertainment, such as these street dancers, was provided for children stuck indoors. In the United States, Haredim who have recovered from COVID have also given back to those who are still fighting the virus by donating antibody-rich plasma for use in experimental treatments. Some doctors have estimated that Haredim could be responsible for over half the plasma that's been donated in the entire country to treat more than 5,000 patients nationwide. Have their efforts to stop transmission paid off? In Bnei Brak, it's been 2 steps forward, 1 step back. After a sharp decline in positive tests in mid-April, Bnei Brak has emerged as one of the hotspots of Israel's second wave. In New York, the scene is somewhat brighter. The city began opening up in June after months of lockdown, and Haredi worshippers are returning to their synagogues with stringent hygiene and distancing protocols in place. Haredim are a minority who have proven susceptible to COVID-19 due in large part to circumstances outside the control of most of them. Perhaps the most salient lesson from this is that governmental authorities and Haredi religious leaders should be building trust and strengthening lines of communication so they can work together to protect these communities from excessive harm in future health challenges.